One of the ways that I nourish my nervous system is by being in nature as much as possible. And I am outside all the time. And I add to that practice of nourishing my nervous system and also really healing my mitochondria by earthing. So, the practice of earthing, literally putting my skin on Earth's surface. You can do that for free by touching a tree, touching a leaf on a tree, or walking around barefoot. But I also wear earthing shoes, especially in the winter when it's a little bit more chilly and I don't want to be walking around all the time barefoot. So, yeah, barefoot's free. But Harmony 783 has great earthing shoes. That's where I get all of my earthing shoes, and they are sponsoring today's podcast. So you can head over to Harmony 783. I will link how to get there in the show notes and use the coupon code Kelli1. So Kelli with an I, KELLI1. And that will get you 10% off. I have the tennis shoes, I have the flats, I have the flip flops, and they have really cute styles. And I am absolutely in love with all of my earthing shoes. It's just another way that you have to help your mitochondrial health and your nervous system. It is a glorious Saturday morning here in Florida, and I felt like recording this episode. So if you are watching on YouTube, no makeup, no shower, it's my Saturday morning look. I went for a walk this morning. It was just amazing. And I've been thinking about a couple of themes that have come up a lot in my work, but also in my personal life, and I wanted to share. So essentially, I'm talking about nourishing our nervous system, our systems, yours, mine, all of our nervous systems. And I don't think there's a better time on the planet than this time to nourish our nervous systems in as many ways as possible. But before I kind of get into this, I wanted to, what happened, I feel like, when my kids were teenagers, what had happened was I did a couple of posts on social media. I'm mostly on Instagram, so that's where I spend a lot of my time. That's where I like to connect with all of you. So if you don't follow me on social, follow me on Instagram so that we can connect there. And I had posted a couple of reels, probably, I don't think these were carousels, these were reels, but I was talking about where you put your focus and energy grows. So where we put our attention, our focus, our energy will grow. And if you're putting that in ways that into things, your focus is on things that nourish you, that are helping you with your vibrant health as opposed to draining you. So what gives you energy? What drains you? And really, this idea of where we put our focus grows. I mean, that's mindfulness 101. I would even say that's psychology 101. This is not, this is something that's well established in the research and what we know. And yet it can be challenging, right? It's like, well, where I put my focus with the world around us right now. But you do have, I believe that we have some choice in that we have, that is a place where we can actually do some work, not in a way that is going to be more draining and more stressful to you, but just in an awareness, starting to have more awareness way. And what happened after I created a couple of posts about where we put our attention and focus growing is that I noticed in myself, I was on a walk with my dog, which I'm always on a walk with the dog. And I'm out there getting the light, but I'm also, he's got to be walked, right? And I'm on this walk and a truck comes around the corner. It's a truck I've seen a lot in our neighborhood. And a beautiful dog was hanging out of the window of this truck as it came around. And I immediately thought, oh, that's a gorgeous dog. It was a yellow, but almost that white yellow lab. And the ones with the really square heads, I really loved those dogs. And it was a big big yellow lab hanging way out of the window. And I thought, oh, that's a gorgeous dog. Not 2 seconds later, I started thinking, well, that's really dangerous that he's hanging so far out. And my mind immediately went to, I'm very good at visualizing the worst things that could happen. And so very quickly, my mind went straight to, like coming around a curve, the dog flying out the window, like, just worst case scenario kind of thing. And I thought, whoa, hey, whoa, okay, back it up. It's not even your dog. And obviously, this dog is used to this, but I didn't think too much about it. And I just continued the walk with my dog. And I got home. And a couple of weeks later, or at some point later, I was thinking about how quickly I was just noticing, okay, how quickly my mind can go to worst case scenario. And I decided to get curious about it. I had a little bit of time so I could be reflective. And I thought, I several episodes ago, I don't even remember exactly which one, but I was talking about those undercurrents of emotions. It's really beliefs and emotions that are underneath, kind of writing, not necessarily completely unconsciously, but we're sort of semi subconscious of those beliefs that are kind of running the show. These beliefs and emotions that are running our lives in ways that we're not totally aware of. And so I wanted to circle back to that. And I thought, well, it's really interesting that here I am working on, because you can train your brain the same way we train our body, train your mind to look for what's good in the world, to look for beauty, and you can train your mind to get still, which is very helpful to get quiet and get still, but also just to be looking for the things that are working, that are good in the world. And while I've been working on that, because where you put your attention and your focus and your energy grows, and that's what I'm intending to grow, is more beauty, more recognizing what is good in the world and what is right in my little sphere, instead of quickly going to what's wrong or what needs to be fixed. And, immediately when I thought, oh, it's so interesting to me, I do love how the universe does this. As soon as I think I've kind of got something and I'm going with it and I know what I'm doing, it will show me the opposite. The universe just shows you the opposite to be equally true, that my brain will very quickly go to worst case scenario. And I can make, very logical connections about that. Like, I'm a mom. So it's part of that is like safety and making sure that wanting everything to be as good as it possibly can and thinking through things. But also, I wanted to get curious about that, really in a non-judgmental way, to say, is there an underlying current here? Is there a belief, an emotion, energy? So in my biofield, this undercurrent, um, lower vibration frequencies that are kind of running, not running rampant. That's not the point. That's not what's happening. But they do run like as just a program that runs, that obviously got layered into my biofield and who I am, or who I think I am, somewhere along the road, somewhere along my journey. And what came to me was, I've struggled with my Achilles heel. My struggle is with trust. I've been working on that in therapy for a long time, and that I work with that. And I thought about how my mind will quickly go to worst case scenario. And I thought about childhood. Not that you have to spend a lot of time digging into your childhood and going into the past. We only do that to illuminate what could be helpful in the here and now. So it is helpful to stay in the here and now, but I also really like being reflective. I think it's helpful to bring that kind of awareness, particularly when we're talking about limiting beliefs or emotions and thoughts and energy that got layered in that's not actually very helpful to us right now, or it is counteractive to what we're trying to establish in our lives. And the more I thought about that, I was like, oh, trust has been a thing for me for as long as I can remember. And I do believe that one of the beliefs, the limiting beliefs that got layered into me at some point in my life, was that the world's not safe and I'm not safe in it. And that's a big piece of it. Not just that the world's not safe, but that I got the message somewhere throughout my life that the world didn't really want me. If I'm getting really deep and honest about it, that the world maybe even couldn't really handle me I remember being pretty young and thinking the world isn't for me, isn't safe for me, and can't really handle me. And so, of course, I've done a lot of work on that, and I have come a long way on that, but I realized it seems to me that that is part of what's happening when my brain goes immediately to the worst case scenario, the worst thing that could happen. And there are some biological reasons, I'm sure, for that. But I wanted to work with that belief and that the emotions, because really the emotions is what intensifies that. And I don't really think you need to go back into your past and dig up all of the things to just have that awareness. I don't need to know every incident in my life. I can think of many where I adopted that belief. And it's not that you have to have intense abusive situations. It is, however, often related to trauma and the way that we have perceived events and what happens in trauma. So trauma is when we think of it as an event, but it doesn't necessarily even have to be an event. But when our system will get overwhelmed, but we can have traumatic growth experiences too, where something goes on in our lives and it actually propels us into a growth, better place, actually. So it doesn't actually have to become this thing that we have to get over and that we have to work with for the rest of our lives and that sort of thing. But the perception of whatever happened and not having the wherewithal to meet that experience. So our nervous systems can be overloaded, and it can be something quite small in logical thinking can happen, and it just puts us in a place where we do not feel like we can cope, where it's beyond what we call it, our stress bucket overflows, right? The nervous system is not able to handle the situation. And often that's related to a lot of shame or secrecy, things that happen that we then shove underground. And I believe that that can contribute to the layering in of limiting beliefs and emotions. But the emotion is the charge that has even more charge than the thought. So thoughts have frequencies, emotion has frequency, and then also energy. Everything is energy. So remember our biofield, or what scientists call our biofield, which is that energetic field that's around us. We can have that's all frequency, right? And when we have a lower vibration frequency, those limiting beliefs and emotions, and even trauma or things, physical injuries, things that get kind of lodged in energetically in our biofield, then working with those things can be helpful so that you can live a more vibrant life. And one of the things that I think is really helpful just in that awareness is not to drive yourself crazy with trying to always figure everything out, because you don't have to figure everything out with your mind. In fact, the mind's job is to make up a story, right? Is to make sense of things, but it doesn't always do that in really helpful ways. I think it's trying to be helpful, but I don't think it is necessarily doing that. And not everything you think is true. So that's why we don't really rely on the mind, but the mind is a very powerful way that we can when we train the mind can be helpful in our own healing and our own health. But the body won't lie to you. This is my point. The body will not lie to you, and your body is always working for you. It is in your corner. It is doing its very best to keep you alive. And if you're listening to this, then you're alive, which means it is doing a good job and has done a good job so far. But this kind of awareness and practice does take time and it does take effort. And I believe that while only you can do it, like we can only do this for ourselves, doesn't have to be a lonely journey. Like we're not meant to do this alone. We can have support, but it does take radical responsibility. And I will say that the more trauma we have in our lives, so PTSD, which is post traumatic stress disorder, but also current stress. When you have current stress disorder, like there's so much going on in our world right now that can create a lot of overwhelm and stress and anxiety. And so when you're in that we have complex trauma, PTSD, current TSD, I guess, is that what that would be called? Current TSD, or, just situations where it will take a lot of effort, and it is not meant for you to do it alone. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is that this kind of awareness and practice can be nourishing to our nervous system. Now, I'm a big fan of actually working on your frequencies and raising your voltage, literally raising the energy in your body. And that is what I help people do with quantum health strategies and nutritional therapy. That's the work that I do, and I love that work. What I'm talking about right now is a theme that keeps coming up about taking radical responsibility for your life. This means taking responsibility for everything, including the things about which you are complaining in your life. And in fact, even realizing that the places in your life that you are avoiding or showing some resistance, that the magic is actually in that which you are avoiding or resisting. So it does take this kind of radical responsibility of, again, not doing it alone, just only you can do this journey. Only you can bring this kind of awareness and curiosity to your own life. So I keep another theme within the radical responsibility is this walking the line. And I really, it's like you're walking the line between self-compassion and self-discipline. Just enough self-kindness and just enough self-accountability to just propel you along. And that doesn't necessarily always look like an upward it certainly doesn't always feel forward, like we're moving forward, but it is actually a progression. And it's not a straight line. At first I was like, I walked the line. I was thinking Johnny Cash, right? I walked the line straight up, just straight up between those two. And I'm like, well, first of all, it's not necessarily straight up. And second of all, it's not even that straight, because I think sometimes we dip a little more, to one side where we just need a little more kindness and compassion towards ourselves, some empathy for our own empathy. And then sometimes we feel like we need more accountability and self-discipline in that. So it's kind of a windy walking the line, but nevertheless, that is continued to come up as part of the process of taking this radical responsibility, really owning that you want to be aware in your life of the lower vibration frequencies that may be contributing in ways that you're not totally aware of at first, but these limiting beliefs and emotions and places in your energy field that are kind of stuck or not very helpful. And maybe they do have a place, but they don't need to be running the show all the time. So in training the mind, the same way we would train the body, is this awareness and then looking for opportunities to practice in while you're walking that line in a very self-compassionate way, but also in this kind of self-disciplined way. And I find this a little bit difficult to explain, so I'm hoping that it's making sense to you and that that is a way that we can nourish our nervous system. There are many ways to nourish the nervous system. There are many ways to rewire our system. Being in nature is a safety signal to our cells, which is very helpful to nourishing our nervous system. And then also putting things in place so that we have the inputs that we need to have enough energy to even be able to consider some of these other things, like being aware of the undercurrents of thoughts and emotions and energy that run in our lives. So that's what happened. And that's what I thought. And that's what I'm working on. And I'm hoping that some of you, this is making sense to you and it's helping you think about the way that you are working on your own life and finding the things that are nourishing to your system, your mind, body, soul, and that are energizing to you. And then just noticing the things that are draining. I still believe that our thoughts, our feelings, and our energy, our biofield, those are really powerful messengers. That's how we get communication and when we're moving in the right direction. And by right, I mean your direction, the direction towards the most actualized you can be, the most vibrant, healthy person that you can be. So it's going to be different for every single person, what nourishes us and what drains us. Going to be probably similar stuff, but there are going to be things, and you might be like, well, I can't just move away from everything that drains me. That is just communication. So when you have thoughts, feelings, and energy that does not feel good to you, feels draining, that's just information that is not moving you towards your actualized self. I'm wiggling my finger because I don't believe that it's a straight path there. So, awareness, opportunities to practice, and then holding ourselves accountable in a very loving way. Yeah, I think that's about it. That's all I wanted to share today. So I hope you are having a great week wherever you are in your week. And I hope that you will tune in to future episodes of the Nourish Soul podcast. Thanks for being here.